HarperOne and Harper Audio present God's Battalions, The Case for the Crusades by Rodney Stark. Read by Bob Souer. A note before we begin. Don't forget to download the accompanying enhancement PDF from your audiobook provider. It contains maps, a bibliography, and more. Introduction. Greedy barbarians in armor? On November 27, 1095, Pope Urban II mounted a platform set up in a meadow outside the French city of Clermont, surrounded in all directions by an immense crowd. A vigorous man of 53, Urban was blessed with an unusually powerful and expressive voice that made it possible for him to be heard at a great distance. On this memorable occasion, addressing a multitude that included poor peasants as well as nobility and clergy, the Pope gave a speech that changed history. Urban had arranged the gathering in response to a letter from Alexius Comnenus, Emperor of Byzantium, who had written from his embattled capital of Constantinople to the Count of Flanders, requesting that he and his fellow Christians send forces to help the Byzantines repel the Seljuk Turks, recent converts to Islam, who had invaded the Middle East, captured Jerusalem, and driven to within 100 miles of Constantinople. In his letter, the emperor detailed gruesome tortures of Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land and vile desecrations of churches, altars, and baptismal fonts. Should Constantinople fall to the Turks, not only would thousands more Christians be murdered, tortured, and raped, but also the most holy relics of the Savior gathered over the centuries would be lost. Therefore, in the name of God, we implore you to bring this city all the faithful soldiers of Christ. In your coming you will find your reward in heaven, and if you do not come, God will condemn you. There are many reasons that Europeans might have ignored any plea for help from Byzantium. For one thing, their cultural heritage as well as their Christianity was Roman, while the Byzantines were Greeks, whose lifestyle seemed decadent to Europeans and whose Orthodox Christianity held Latin Catholicism in contempt, often persecuting its priests and practitioners. Nevertheless, when Urban II read this letter, he was determined that it be answered by worthy deeds, and he arranged for a church council at Clermont, which he followed with his famous speech. Speaking in French, the Pope began by graphically detailing the torture, rape, and murder of Christian pilgrims and the defilement of churches and holy places committed by the Turks. He called them Persians. They destroy the altars after having defiled them with their uncleanness. They circumcise the Christians, and the blood of the circumcision they either pour on the altars or pour into the vases of the baptismal font. When they wish to torture people by a base death, they perforate their navels and, dragging forth the extremity of the intestines, bind it to a stake. Then with flogging they lead the victim around until the viscera having gushed forth, the victim falls prostrate on the ground. What shall I say about the abominable rape of women? To speak of it is worse than to be silent. On whom, therefore, is the labor of avenging these wrongs and recovering this territory incumbent, if not upon you? At this point, Pope Urban raised a second issue to which he and his illustrious predecessor, Gregory VII, had devoted years of effort, the chronic warfare of medieval times. The popes had been attempting to achieve a truce of God among the feudal nobility, many of whom seemed inclined to make war, even on their friends, just for the sake of a good fight. After all, it was what they had trained to do every day since early childhood. Here was their chance. Christian warriors who continually and vainly seek pretexts for war, rejoice, for you have today found a true pretext. If you are conquered, you will have the glory of dying in the very same place as Jesus Christ, and God will never forget that he found you in the holy battalions. Soldiers of hell become soldiers of the living God. Now shouts of Dieu le veut, God wills it, began to spread through the crowd, and men began to cut up cloaks and other pieces of cloth to make crosses and sew them against their chests. Everyone agreed that the next year they would set out for the Holy Land, and they did. That is the traditional explanation of how and why the First Crusade began. But in recent times, a far more cynical and sinister explanation of the Crusades has gained popularity. Thus, in the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?